Hello and welcome back to another episode of Weather Nerds. I am First Alert Weather Nerd CD Finley here, your host for today on this 7th episode, and definitely a lot to talk about in today's podcast. It's been a very busy week of weather here across Central Texas, even for the last week, and we're actually going to be in a little bit of a lull here for the upcoming week. We'll get to that in just a little bit, but before we do, I do want to show you this sky cam here because here in the middle of the week, again, today is April 9th. 2025 here in Central Texas is our viewing area, and I want to show you all this sky cam because man oh man, is it a beautiful day outside here. Looking at our Waco sky cam, you'd be hard pressed to find a single cloud out there in the sky. So a great day here across the area, but more on that here in just a little bit. First and foremost, I want to apologize. I know we have a lot of viewers and listeners who tune into us on Facebook Live. This week's episode is actually being pre-recorded and uploaded to the Degrees of Science YouTube channel, as is typical, but this episode is not going live on Facebook. We actually ran into a few technical difficulties. Some of our other hosts, like Alyssa Riggs and Clayton Anderson, they ran into some other audio issues on Facebook this morning, and unfortunately those have yet to be fixed. So today's episode is not live, but thankfully, we're still able to do this pre-recording and get all the information out here for you. So let's go ahead and jump straight into it. So first and foremost, again, as I was kind of mentioning, we have these uploaded on the Degrees of Science YouTube channel. Just wanted to show you this here. You can see this is a screen recording of our Degrees of Science YouTube page. You can see all the Degrees of Science page or episodes right there that our chief meteorologist Brady Taylor mostly does. Reaching for the Stars is a really good one. I suggest watching that one. It's a really cool interview that we have with an astronaut and his story. But you can also see there under the podcast tab that we'll get to shortly. There you go. We got a whole playlist of our pre-recorded and live Weather Nerds episodes. We are up to episode 2 through 6 on there now. So episode 1 actually didn't wind up going on there because we ran into some audio issues on that one. But episode 2 through 6, and then of course this episode 7 will be there on our Degrees of Science page as well. So if you're typically tuning in on Facebook and being redirected to Degrees of Science, welcome. That's typically where we have all of our episodes. That way you can go back and watch them and kind of see what's been going on in Central Texas weather-wise over the course of 5 or 6 episodes now. So just wanted to get that, a little reminder out there. But yeah, it's been a really busy week of weather here in Central Texas. We actually had a first alert weather day 5 days ago at this point. This would have been, 5 days ago would have been Thursday. It would have been Friday and into Saturday. So that would have been April. Man, I'm getting my dates all mixed up here. Give me one moment. I'm going to look at my calendar, handy dandy calendar. 4th and the 5th, April 4th and 5th. Those were first alert weather days. Man, as a weatherman, you'd think I'd have the calendar in my head, but I don't. First alert weather days, yeah, so this was obviously last week. This is not current, but we're kind of taking a retrospective look here. Friday and Saturday, we had the potential for some stronger thunderstorms on Friday afternoon, actually, across the eastern half of our area, which actually eventually led to, surprisingly, a tornado watch that was in effect originally until 9 o'clock that night. But the tornado watch was actually eventually canceled because we actually didn't see too much of that here in Central Texas. Thankfully, there actually was one confirmed tornado well up to our north and east on that Friday afternoon. And so that's kind of want to show you here. This was actually an image snapped in Van Zant County, just to the east of the Dallas area, closer to Canton, Texas. And this was a very weak, mind you, but still a tornado nonetheless. It was actually rated an EF0 by the National Weather Service in Fort Worth and their observation team. But this picture here was snapped of what is presumed to be the funnel there in Canton, Texas. And you can see there's a little bit of a lowering there. If you had asked me and I'd just been looking around and just saw that still image, I probably would have just said that was some scud or some scary looking cloud. But there was supposedly some rotation there, so obviously it's kind of hard to tell with a still image. But That was a picture that was snapped there, and of course it was EF0. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the way that we rate tornadoes in the National Weather Service, it goes from EF0 all the way to EF5, and it's actually based on damage. So EF0 is very, very minimal, didn't really impact many people, thankfully. But EF0 all the way up to EF5, which is the highest tier, which is the one you obviously we don't want any tornadoes, period, in terms of damage, but EF5 is definitely the highest rating. In fact, for those of you who aren't aware, we haven't had an EF5 anywhere in the United States or in the world for that matter since May 20th, 2013, which was the Moore, Oklahoma EF5 tornado, for those of you who may remember that one. Yeah, so that, thankfully not too much in the way of impacts with the severe weather that we had from Friday afternoon and even Saturday morning. Again, looking back at that first alert weather day, we had 2 of them in effect, so that was the Friday one. Saturday morning, thankfully, was mainly just some scattered showers and thunderstorms. So thankfully, we didn't have too much in the way of hail or anything like that. It was just a little bit of a loud awakening for everybody here in our area in Central Texas across Saturday morning. So thankfully, things worked out okay with those first alert weather days, and hopefully they will continue to do so over the course of the next few months. But let's kind of dive into, it was a really interesting weather setup, which kind of made, the forecast for those first alert weather days a little bit more unpredictable than you would like within a 24 to 48 hour period. And the big reason for that was we had this big stalled front here. So this was actually a picture that I posted on my Facebook page, again, around that same time, about 4 or 5 days ago at the time of this recording. And you can see there was a stalled front across Central Texas, which had a pretty clear divide in temperatures, which means if you were behind that front, so in this picture, of course, places like Waco, Gatesville, Goldthwaite, all the way up into Meridian and Hillsboro, where those temperatures were upper 60s, lower 70s, you were likely safe and clear of those thunderstorms on Friday afternoon. But if you're in those that warm sector, the warmer areas like Georgetown, Cameron, Hearn, Centerville, which is where all that severe weather actually did take place, the warmer temperatures, that's where all the weather was actually getting kicked up. And so it was all kind of dependent on, where that frontal boundary set up. And a lot of models, just didn't really pick up on it all too well. For example, the HRRR, I was talking with Chief Meteorologist Brady Taylor about this practically all afternoon long. It was trying to pick up showers and thunderstorms across Central Texas when in reality there was just too much of a stable air mass behind the front. And so they just didn't really pick up on the timing and location of that front all too well. So that made forecasting it a little bit difficult. So we kind of had to rely more on observation as opposed to model data. But that definitely made for an interesting forecast. Again, thankfully, last Friday and Saturday wound up pretty safe for just about everybody in Central Texas. Thankfully, we didn't see any of those thunderstorms pop up. But one of the other things that was kind of a big deal with that weather setup too, not necessarily here, but in the Arklatex region all the way into Arkansas, which, by the way, wouldn't have wanted to be in Arkansas last week. They had multiple rounds of severe weather, including a handful of enhanced risks, which, for those of you who aren't familiar, that's a level 3 out of 5 risk, severe weather risk that's introduced by the Storm Prediction Center. And they also had a moderate and even a high at one point, which we've only seen 2 high risks so far, and even then, it's really rare to see a high risk in a storm season period. Get my words out there, geez. But with that in mind, though, those areas, Arklatex region all the way into Arkansas, definitely saw a lot of flooding with all the storms that were rolling through there too. This is actually a picture taken in Sulphur Springs, Texas. You can see some street flooding there for sure. So that's one other thing that we kind of definitely don't want to gloss over here as storm season really starts to get going. Here's another photo right here. Flooding is another big issue, especially here in Central Texas. And some people have dubbed Central Texas the flood alley of the Great Plains, so to speak. So with that in mind, just kind of a brief reminder, if you ever see something like this on a street, remember the good old phrase, turn around, don't drown. You definitely don't want to take your chances and drive through something like that, especially because while it may not look like a lot of water and it may look like your car can handle it, you don't know what that water is concealing. You don't know what's underneath it and how deep it might actually be. For all you know, there could be a sinkhole beneath that water, and you never know. So definitely something to keep in mind as we head further into the month of April. So that's kind of a retrospective look at where we've been for the past week. Now let's kind of take a look forward. We're finally getting a little bit of a quiet period here in April, which may not actually be all that common. Right now it seems to be kind of an every other year thing. So before we get into the specifics on that, let's go ahead and take a look at the forecast for today. I usually save this for last, but I feel like this is kind of a bit more topical with what we're about to go into. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of show off the brief 10-day graphic here real quick that we have set up here, again, on this April 9th, 2025, which is here this Wednesday. So there, let's see, where'd it go? There we go. Bam. So yeah, there's your 10-day that we have set up this morning and this afternoon. You can see temperatures upper 70s, lower 80s. Might see a very weak cold front Thursday afternoon, but other than that, forecast calls for a lot of sunshine in the upcoming week, and even all the way through next Wednesday when hopefully episode 8 will go out of Weather Nerds. So before then, though, I mean, just lots of sunshine, and we might see just a few rain chances kind of linger at the end of the work week, but beyond that, even those rain chances are not extremely high. So, when is the last time we've seen, a stretch of quiet weather like this in the middle of April? Not even just a stretch like this, but 7-8 days of quiet weather. Well, I did some digging, as we typically do here on Weather Nerds, hence the nerd part of the title. And so this is all data that I got from the National Weather Service in Fort Worth. If you ever go to the website and take a look at the climate tab that they have there just above that main panel, you can go there and kind of see all the climatology and stats for not just Waco, but Fort Worth and any of the surrounding areas. And most of the National Weather Service offices are pretty good about displaying that information on their websites. But I pulled this from their website, National Weather Service in Fort Worth, and I did. There's a lot of numbers here, so I tried my best to kind of highlight it there in red with that red circle. But precipitation amounts. This was actually April 2023. So April 2024, we didn't really have a stretch. It was a little bit more of a wet season, as you'll see, as it typically is. We usually see about 3 inches of rainfall for the month of April. But we did have about a, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-day stretch there between April 6th and April 13th. 2023. So that was the last time that we really had a long stretch of quiet weather like this. And even then, it was kind of a longer stretch than that. But the days on the bookends of that stretch, we only had a trace amount of rain. So if you really wanted to, you could say that was maybe a week and a half, upwards of 2 weeks of quiet weather in central Texas. So that's the last time we'd seen something like that. But as I said earlier, it's kind of a every other year thing. 2022, we had a pretty wet April. But then going back to April 2021, the beginning of April 2021 was pretty dry. We had about a 12-day stretch there, April 1st to April 12th, 2021. We went without any rainfall at all, and we didn't really start to see a tick up in those rain chances until the middle of the month. So it's a little bit more common, especially in recent years, that we've seen a little bit of a quiet stretch. So and as I said, it's kind of just an every other year thing. So I guess it's kind of our turn this year to have that quiet stretch in the middle of April. But that's also kind of a concerning thing, because recently we've been in a bit of a lull in terms of those rain chances. So I kind of want to go back here and look at the monthly rainfall for 2024 in terms of just how we were that entire year. So let's look here. Again, you can see May of 2024, we definitely had a lot of rainfall, 15 inches. You may have heard us say that plenty of times in reference to things like this. But since then, I mean, we spent the second half of 2024 all below normal in terms of those monthly rainfall amounts. I mean, look at that. June, July, August they were very dry. In fact, July, we saw close to about 1 3/4 inches. But since then, we struggled to even get 1/4 of an inch in August. And since then, again, obviously well below normal. In fact, as we move forward here, you can see that we've only had 1 month of above normal rainfall. And that, of course, was this past January 2025. And I didn't mean to hit that. We'll jump back to that here in a second. But yeah, January 2025, and for those of you who remember, obviously we had a little bit of winter precipitation that happened in that month, and even then we barely got above normal. I mean, it was only about close to 2.5 inches is normal, I believe, and we had a bit of a buzzer beater there at the end of the month, which barely put us over the edge of that deficit. But since then, February, and of course, obviously March, we were 2 inches below normal for March 2025, and so far we've only seen 3/4 of an inch in April, so it's not a bad start to the month of April. But again, as I kind of teased there a moment ago, we still have about 2 or 3 weeks left in the month. So we have plenty of time to kind of catch up to that 2.5 inch deficit that we currently have. But again, given that 10-day forecast we just saw, there's not much in the way of rain chances. We actually likely won't see any rain, if any, for another week or week and a half or so. So that's definitely something to be watching for. In addition to the fact that we've seen some more drought conditions start to settle their way in Central Texas. So January 1st, 2025, this is where we started the year on the drought monitor, had some severe drought conditions out in those southern counties towards Killeen, Temple, Georgetown. And then here's where we stand here at the beginning of the month of April. Notice here, it gets a little bit better heading into March, but now that we've had that further, dry period, extreme and exceptional drought starting to creeping its way back into Central Texas. So hopefully, fingers crossed, this does not stay the trend. We do not want to continue talking about, how dry it is in Central Texas and how, how dry it is and how much the fire danger could maybe even pick up heading into the summer months. Because especially, once that faucet turns off in summer, we're, kind of just left out to dry, quite literally. In terms of those rainfall amounts. So we definitely could use the rain. But as you saw a moment ago, thankfully we have some rain chances within the next week and a half, but unfortunately, not a lot of confidence in those right now. That first alert Futurecast, again, we are picking up on a cold front heading into Thursday afternoon. So of course, at the time of this recording, this would be April 10th, 2025, on the evening of that day. And you can see it's a very dry front, not expecting any moisture out in front of it, no rain chances there, but it might cool us down for Friday, April 11th, so that's good news, back in the upper 70s, but we'll quickly rebound back in the 80s this weekend. So more sunshine from then, and maybe another frontal boundary heading into Monday and Tuesday, might kick us back down into the upper 80s, but then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, that's when we actually have, of the next work week, that's when we start seeing the chance for some more rain showers here in Central Texas, especially this model in particular, the GFS model. It's picking up late Thursday into Friday. But, of course, there's still a week worth of time between now and that forecast time, so that will likely change a lot over the next week or so, and I'm sure we'll probably be talking about it a little bit more, assuming this forecast holds, in next week's episode, on episode 8. But that's kind of where we're at in terms of rainfall. So we definitely need it here in Central Texas. That's going to be one of the headlines that we're talking about this week, if you haven't heard us talk about it already. So yeah, that just about does it for this week's episode of Weather Nerds. Again, thank you all so much for tuning in here on the Degrees of Science YouTube channel. And I apologize for the lack of Facebook Live coverage today. Again, we just kind of ran into some technical difficulties, but I'll just kind of show it for you one more time. For those of you who may be coming from Facebook and usually watch us there on Facebook, just a brief reminder of where you can find the podcasts on the Degrees of Science YouTube channel, and I'll also kind of use this to segue into what we got going on this week behind the scenes. But again, you can see the Degrees of Science YouTube channel there, youtube.com/Degrees of Science. You can see Reaching for the Stars Part 2, which is Brady Taylor's Degrees of Science segment this week. Wonderful interview with an astronaut there. Definitely check it out and hear his story. It's really inspirational. But you can see there in the videos tab, you can see all the previous videos that we've uploaded to the Degrees of Science YouTube channel page. And of course, go to the podcast tab. That's where you'll find the playlist of all of our Weather Nerds episodes, and of course that's where episode 7, this episode, will be uploaded, and likely where you are watching it currently. So just wanted to show that off one more time. And again, with the behind the scenes stuff, obviously Chief Meteorologist Brady Taylor's been doing a great job with our Degrees of Science segments. And again, just quiet weather this week, so hopefully we don't bore ourselves in the First Alert Weather Center. But, I mean, boring weather is not necessarily a bad thing. That means everybody's having a great time. You definitely want to get out and enjoy that weather while you certainly can. Because as we all know, as you saw a moment ago with all of that data, it will likely change pretty quickly, especially as we head into May. May is pretty much peak storm season here in Central Texas. And one thing before we go, actually, I'm realizing I'm wrapping a little bit too early, but where does I want to pull this back up again before we go. The April 2025 rainfall amounts. Obviously, we've seen 3/4 of an inch in terms of rainfall. What did I just do? I don't know what I just did, but here we go. But in terms of rainfall, obviously 3/4 of an inch for the month, right? How does that kind of add up in terms of our driest Aprils? Well, if we were to continue this trend, we would be between the 7th and I guess technically 5th years of driest rainfall in April. So again, about half an inch in 1903, a little over 3/4 of an inch in 2018. So we'd be right between that. We'd actually be in 6th place. But thankfully, as you saw, there's some rain in the forecast. So hopefully we get a little bit more than that and we're not on this driest top 10 list in the coming months. But hopefully, fingers crossed, again, we definitely need that rain. Again, thank you all so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it, and I hope you all enjoy the quiet weather. I'm realizing that the background just changed. I'm not quite sure how that happened. There we go. That's why. Anyway, learn something new every day. Thank you all again for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Hopefully, we see you all on Facebook Live next week, and of course, here on the Degrees of Science YouTube channel. Hope you all have a wonderful week ahead.